I got this for free. Isn't that amazing? The history of the Holden Captiva. Holden was once a renowned Australian brand, known for making tough, reliable cars, but this reputation would never be the same after 2006 with the release of the Captiva, or as it is now commonly called, the Craptiva. So the downfall of Holden can't solely be blamed on the Captiva. It was due to a combination of things, the main two being the rebranding of Daewoo models as Holdens, which were mostly low quality cars, and the second being the infamous Alloytec V6 engine, used in lots of its popular models. And unfortunately, both of these were true for the Captiva. So in 2006 the Captiva was released. Technically the Captivas, as there were two similar cars called the Captiva CG7, which the majority of them were, including this one, which was based off a Daewoo Windstorm, and the less common Captiva CG5, which was based off the Opel Antara. Both of these cars were based off the same GM Theta platform and mostly used the same motors. The numbers 5 and 7 used in the names were due to the amount of seats they had, although you could get a Captiva 7 with 5 seats. So the Captiva 7 was built by Daewoo in Korea. However, it used Australian-built motors built at Holden's engine plant in Fisherman's Bend, Port Melbourne in Victoria. The Captiva was originally available with 3 different motors. A 2.4 litre Z24XE 4-cylinder, which was a version of the GM Family 2 motor, used in countless Opel, Vauxhall and Daewoo models over the years. It was a dual overhead cam 16 valve, making 103 kilowatt and 220 Nm of torque. A 3.2 litre Alloytec V6 was also available, making 169 kilowatt and 297 Nm of torque. This was similar to the 3.6 litre Alloytec, but with a smaller bore of 89mm rather than the 94mm bore in the Commodores. Both these motors had a stroke of 85.6mm. This engine was designed and built in Australia, although Cadillac in the US did help with the design and development, and they were also produced in Canada for foreign markets. On a side note, the Alfa Romeo JTS V6 motor is a tuned version of the 3.2 litre used in the Captiva. These were built by Holden too. You can imagine the look on an Alfa Romeo owner's face when they realise that their car has a Captiva motor in it. There was also a 4-cylinder diesel model known as the RA420, which was a VM motor. This motor made 110 kilowatt and 320 Nm of torque, and unlike the two Australian-made petrol motors, this was Korean built. They all had 5-speed transmissions, and the majority of them were automatics. There were both front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive versions available too. The one in this video has the all-wheel drive system. So the Captivas were very well equipped for how much they cost, and they sold like hotcakes back in the day, especially the Alloytec models. It was exactly the right car for the Australian market at the time, a large station wagon SUV with decent engine options, decent towing capacity, decent ground clearance, sold by a trusted Australian brand. Except there was a catch. These V6 motors ended up suffering from sludge buildup, which led to them stretching timing chains, as with the V6 Commodores. Timing chains were harder to access in Captivas than they were in the Commodores too, due to the transverse engine layout it has. They were also filled with gimmicky features like an electronic handbrake and flat fold seats, which is a pretty cool feature. Chrysler came up with this for the 4th gen Voyager about 5 years earlier. There was an update in 2012 where the Captiva got an updated front end and a few other updates including Altezza lights from factory, one of the very few cars to ever get this. It got some different motors now too. The Family 2 motor was replaced with the Korean source GM Ecotec 4-cylinder, which was in no way related to the 3.8 litre Buick Ecotec V6 used in Commodores up to 2004. This 4-cylinder made 123 kilowatts and 320 Nm of torque, and it had direct injection. The 3.2 litre Alloytec V6 was replaced with the 3 litre SIDI Alloytec, now making 190 kilowatt and 288 Nm of torque. The SIDI stood for Spark Injection Direct Injection, which was also used on the VE Commodore. The diesel was replaced with the 2.2 litre VCDI Family Z turbodiesel, which this car has. It made 135 kilowatt and 400 Nm. All Series 2 models now had the GM 6T 6-speed automatic transmissions too, at least the automatic ones. There was a third update in 2016 where the car got new bumpers and lights. This meant the car no longer had the Altezza tail lights. The Alloytec motors for these remained the same, but were now sourced from overseas as Holden was closing down its Australian production. The diesel was replaced with a 2 litre multi-jet motor. It made 126 kilowatt and 400 Nm of torque, so less power and the same torque as the 2.2 litre it replaced. The multi-jet was a joint venture between GM and Fiat, and it was also used in a lot of models including the KL Cherokee, the Compass and Renegade, as well as a few Alfa Romeos including the 159. Another example of an Alfa Romeo having a Captiva motor. The Captiva was pulled from the market in 2018 after 12 years on sale in Australia, but by then the damage was done. Holden stopped making cars in 2017 and shut up for good in 2020 after 164 years, one of the saddest days in Australian motoring history and the end of one of the world's oldest car brands, and in my opinion one of the greatest. While the main cause of this car's notorious reputation is its Alloytec motor, but if you can put that aside, the rest of the car is not terrible, but still far from a decent car. They are pretty hard to work on too, due to the lack of room in the engine bay. Captivas on the used car market are cheap, and for a good reason. They're not very good, and please don't buy one. If you do want one, they can be picked up for around $3,000, and if you get one, make sure it's been very well maintained. Diesel ones seem to have catalytic converter problems too, which are expensive to replace. While they are still everywhere on Australian roads, I doubt there will be many left in 10 years' time as they get older and cheaper. A Ford Territory is a much better option, even if you do have to change the diff bushers and ball joints. Wait, hold up. If these cars are so bad, then why the hell do I have one? Though this one I was given for free. It has a blown motor, and the mechanic who looked at it thought it would cost more to repair than what the whole car is worth. And he's probably right. And even if the Captiva isn't a very good car, it's still a very significant part of Australian motoring history, and that's why it's worth remembering.